Hey, I thought I'd give some constructive feedback for Speed Brawl. I actually talked to the developers and they wanted to kind of get some feedback from people who have played it and how they can improve it. They have released a roadmap about things they want to change. They want to make the game faster. They want to improve the balancing, maybe make the itemization, the gearing better. Now, I didn't rehearse this or anything. I'm just going to go through some of the things that really bother me about this game. The first thing is the loot system. The loot system is not very robust, to put it nicely. There's really only a couple items, and there's not really a whole lot of build variety, so you pretty much just run with the strongest stuff. Like, some characters like Cassie are better with the extra air jump and things like that, but besides that, it's really nothing special. I would like them to add like maybe more unique properties on the weapons and the accessories, and kind of change the game that way without necessarily having to make new assets. A lot of the things in the shop are either useless or too expensive. There's not really much point in using the shop, unfortunately. The gold feels pretty much pointless, like it's just kind of there. I know they kind of overhype getting the shop, and I played through most of this game before I got kind of frustrated with it, and I don't really recall using it more than 2 or 3 times. I think if they maybe increased the gold output for repeating events and maybe put some guaranteed good properties in here, I think that will definitely help the gearing quite a bit. But that just goes back to the original problem of there just not being any real interesting gear in this game at all. The only things that are really interesting are things like the accessories, but even these, a lot of these are not particularly interesting either. The skill point system is actually pretty good, however, it doesn't really fix the main problem that this game has, which I'm going to get into right now. One of the main problems. Let's go back to the first league. Now, one of the things they've been trying to fix is the fact that the speedy characters are just leaps and bounds better than the slow characters. They are very awkward to play. They move very slowly. Apparently there's some new buff that they added where if you keep a combo going, they get like a run speed increase, but it's probably not enough. A lot of their movesets are just terrible, and they feel like they need a lot of fine-tuning. Ebba and Cassie are like the best characters in my opinion. There's not really much reason to deviate from that. Now, I'm going to get to the reasons why right now.
Ebba!
Okay, so I'm actually not going to do the jump start here so I can explain things. So your moveset in this game is pretty simple. You have a basic string, you have a down attack, an up attack, which is a launcher. You have that in the air. You have an air string. You have like a Helmbreaker type move. And your special and your fury. Now, the problem is most of the moves have the exact same properties, which is one of the things that makes the slow characters not so great, is you have a character like this that can attack this fast, and everybody else pretty much has a very homogenized, very similar moveset. There's no real reason to use them. Now, let's get some enemies on screen. Now, that is my other problem with this game. The tagging, as much as they promote it, it's really only useful for like using it as a burst to get out of a combo. Like, you can't actually combo things with the tag unless you knock them into the corner. You can see how far they get knocked away. It's very hard to actually convert off it. See, like right there, it's great for bursts. But in terms of like actual combos and stuff, it's basically pointless. Some of these special attacks feel underwhelming, like Final Fury here. It doesn't do a lot of damage, and you can't really spec in things in this game like you would in a like another game, pretty much. I think that's one of the problems with the gear system, is that it doesn't really allow you to specialize in much of anything. You have a couple unique properties, but none of them are particularly interesting. It's mostly things like your you know, your counter will have a larger window, or you'll be able to double jump and things like that. I know they've talked at length about how you know, how hard they worked on this game and stuff. The graphics and the art style are great, and I know it's probably a massive undertaking for them to make new moves. I'm not really sure how they could fix the moveset problem. I think that's one of the biggest issues right now. One of the things that's kind of plaguing the balancing of this is that, you know, the faster characters largely have the same movesets aside from the special attacks and the ultimate attacks, or the supers. So why would you use the slower characters when the faster ones, they don't always have better hitboxes. The slower characters do have pretty good hitboxes, but they attack so much slower and they move so much slower that, you know, when the game is basically designed around going as fast as possible and maintaining your momentum, there's no real reason to use them. So half the cast just feels like they're kind of there, unfortunately. Now, when this game lets you go fast, it is quite fun, but there are a lot of really annoying enemy designs that really kind of go against you being able to do that. Even if you're playing really well, there's a lot of luck and stuff. Obviously, beat-em-ups, I'm sure most of you that subscribe to me play beat-em-ups in some capacity. You know that RNG has always been a, you know, like the life partner of beat-em-ups. There's always going to be random factors and things like that, but it feels really amplified in this game. You know, sometimes the ranged enemies will just, like, always attack you right in the middle of an attack or a combo and things like that. A lot of the big enemies, the big armored ones, there's really only one way to fight them. You can't pass through them. It just feels frustrating to fight them. There's not really a whole lot of different ways that you can attack the enemies. So when you have big enemies like that that are armored, that can only be attacked from one side, it just feels very limited. You know, in a game like this, obviously the character moveset and the mechanics and stuff are important, but the enemy design is important too. Alright, I'm gonna go ahead and back out. No! So when you start getting to this point of the game, it's when it really starts to pile on, like, the hazards and things that just really slow the game down. And the problem with that is that it's a very common problem with beat-em-ups. You kind of have to balance, you know, like actually being able to enjoy the mechanics and then trying to shake things up, because a lot of people who aren't passionate about these games think that, you know, annoying hazards and enemies that aren't fun to fight, or that you only have one, like, real optimal way to take them out, or sometimes even just one way to take them out at all. It really bogs down the game, and this game does not have a large like roster of enemies. So when you have a lot like the big crabs and the beetles and stuff, and they keep coming back, and you can't really fight them besides just getting behind them, it starts to really wear down on you after a while. I'd say towards maybe like the end of Sixpence, which is the second world, is where it starts to really pile on the gimmicks, and you just feel very frustrated and you can't really play the way you want. And the way that the movesets are designed actually kind of amplifies that as well.
I will not fail.
Like, I'll show playing as him and what the big issue is right now. You can see how much slower he is.
I will not fail. Knock him down.
And since his moveset is basically the same as all the characters, there's not really a whole lot of advantage to playing as him. Another thing that should be changed is that, at the very least, the heavy character should be able to stagger these large enemies. That would give them a bit more of an advantage, or like incentive to actually play as them. You know, if you got a bunch of these guys on the screen and you're playing as a heavy character, it just takes longer to do damage to them because, you know, they have much longer animations and recoveries. Well, you see how much clunkier he feels than Ebba and Cassie. Like, when you're near a wall, you actually can continue a tag combo, but a lot of times they get knocked really far away, and you can't really do what you like, and even then, the very limited, homogenized movesets kind of go against what you would like to do in your head. So, I think that's pretty much everything. It's mostly just the gearing. The equipment is not very interesting. The movesets are very identical. You can't really use the tag system in a way that you'd normally think you could in any other game that has tagging. And the balance is pretty out of whack. The faster characters are pretty much better in every conceivable way, and there's not really a whole lot of reason to use the slower characters, and it doesn't help that the only thing that really sets them apart is basically their special attack and their super, and some things on the skill tree. I should actually show the skill tree before I go. Inferior. So there is some interesting things in here, like have this one which makes her super hit twice more. This one gives you armor. But some of the stuff like barely matters. A lot of times in this game you either go through with flying colors or you just die. So having all this stuff be health doesn't really feel useful, at least in my experience. I've got about probably 10 hours in this game across the PC and Switch versions. And you have Johnson here. He has a lot of stuff for his special attack, but his special attack is very awkward to use because he has to completely hit the ground before it does any damage at all. So it's not a very versatile, useful attack. And he's got a lot of health too. I think this is one of the ways that they could improve the game without necessarily having to make new frames of animation and assets, is have better passive abilities and more gear, and then maybe try to work on the tagging mechanics and buff the slower characters. I think that would go a long way. But right now, the game does get very frustrating, and there's not really a whole lot of real room for your own identity or playstyle, which is kind of why I got a little bored of it after a while. But they do seem to be committed to improving the game, so hopefully this will help them. Anyway, that's it, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.